Now, the Israeli cabinet voted to approve a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal, ending days of uncertainty about whether the truce would go into effect this weekend. The office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the government has endorsed the hostage return plan, and the deal to halt the fighting between Hamas will come into effect on Sunday. Now, the full Israeli cabinet voted in favor of the agreement with Hamas after the Security Cabinet gave its nod to the deal on Friday. According to reports, 24 ministers voted in favor, while 8 of them opposed the agreement.
We came here to vote forward to the deal to bring back our hostages. It's a very hard decision, but we decided to support it because it's very important to us to see all of our children, men and women back home. We hope that in the future we will be able to finish the job in Gaza.
Likud ministers David Amsalem and Amichai Chikli were among the 8 cabinet members to vote against the deal, while Communications Minister Shlomo Karhi, also from Prime Minister Netanyahu's Likud party, was not present. The Otzma Yehudit ministers who opposed the deal are Itamar Ben-Gvir, party's leader, Yitzhak Wasserlauf and Amichai Eliyahu. Head of the Religious Zionism Party, Bezalel Smotrich was joined by his party's minister, Orit Strok and Ophir Sofer, in voting against the deal. Otzma Yehudit has threatened to quit the coalition over the deal, while religious Zionism will apparently remain in the government after Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly reached an understanding with Smotrich to keep his elect faction in the fold. Under the deal, 33 Israeli hostages still held by Hamas since October 7, 2023 attack on Israel will be released during the first phase lasting 6 weeks. In exchange, the Justice Ministry has published a list of 95 Palestinians to be freed starting Sunday. They include 69 women, 16 men and 10 minors. According to the agreement, Israeli forces will withdraw from the densely populated areas of Gaza. Displaced Palestinians will be allowed to begin returning to their homes, and hundreds of aid vehicles will be allowed into the territory. Negotiations for the second phase, which will see the remaining hostages released and a full Israeli troop withdrawal, will start on the 16th day, while the third and final stage will involve the reconstruction of Gaza and the return of any remaining hostages' bodies. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has said that the Palestinian Authority has completed preparations to assume full responsibility in Gaza after the war. Even before the truce begins, displaced Gazans were preparing to return home. Thousands across Gaza celebrated the ceasefire agreement. Palestinian refugees and Syrian nationals gathered in Damascus to celebrate the Hamas-Israel ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said Israel pounded several areas of the territory, killing more than 100 people and wounding hundreds more since the deal was announced on Wednesday. In Yemen, thousands of protesters, mainly Houthi supporters, rallied in the Sabine Square in the Houthi-held capital Sana'a in support of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. During the rally, Houthi military spokesperson announced that several military operations were carried out by the group against Israel using missiles and drones. He also said that Yemeni naval forces targeted American aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman in the Red Sea with the drones. And for more on this, we're now being joined by Dr. Charles Kupchan from Washington, D.C. He's a senior fellow at the Council of Foreign Relations. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA, sir.
Good to be with you.
Now, sir, of course, we saw that the negotiations and the finalization of this deal, it hit a snag in the final stage before it was to be implemented. That's on Sunday, tomorrow. Now, that being said, how do you assess the strength, or rather the fragility of this deal?
Well, the deal has been sealed. We did have 8 members of the cabinet vote no. It's likely that one of those parties that's part of the coalition, Mr. Ben-Gvir, will leave the Netanyahu government. That will not bring it down. It will reduce the majority from 68 seats to 62 seats. But Netanyahu does enjoy the backing of the opposition as well. So politically speaking, Israel is going to get behind the ceasefire deal, and I expect it to be implemented on time on Sunday. What is, I think, uncertain is what happens after day 16 when negotiations begin on the second phase. Because this is a ceasefire, that brings hostages home in return for Palestinian prisoners being released, but it is silent on the tough issues. What to do about the border between Gaza and Egypt, the buffer zone between Gaza and Israel, the zone that bisects Gaza into two halves controlled by Israel. These are issues that have been left to future discussions. Those discussions are not going to be easy because they have to do with Hamas's desire to stay in control and stay intact, and Israel's control to retain control of Gaza.
Right, so now we've heard since the beginning of this war, Israel's goal was always to annihilate Hamas completely. That being said, we know that President-elect Donald Trump is all set to return to the White House on Monday. Would you say then that this deal was sort of rushed for it to go through before perhaps Donald Trump takes office? Do you think that's one, because Biden administration needed a win, or because perhaps Israel wouldn't enjoy the same support under Donald Trump's administration?
Well, I think several different factors are at play. One is that Israel has succeeded in very seriously degrading Hamas, Hezbollah, and weakening Iran. And on some level that allows Netanyahu to claim mission accomplished. I've done more or less what I said. I've taken down the axis of resistance. Number two, Biden has been trying to get this deal sealed since May. This is in some ways a way to allow Biden to leave office with a win. And number three, I think Netanyahu wants to get off to a good start with Trump. He wants to have a good working relationship with Trump. And Trump said very clearly, I want this war finished by the time I take office. He takes office on Monday. The ceasefire takes effect one day before.
Right. Very important point, sir. Now, just coming back to a point that you'd made earlier, to take that further, you said it really just depends on what happens after day 16. Of course, these first initial few days are crucial. That being said, the Palestinian Authority has said that it is ready to assume control of Gaza. Do you think that's likely to happen?
I think over time, yes. I don't believe that Israel will allow an outcome that leaves Hamas in a position of political power. They can't get rid of every single Hamas operative and fighter. Many of them are still in tunnels. They can't find each and every one of them. But I do think that Israel will insist on some kind of governing structure in Gaza that does not include Hamas. And that does mean some presence of the Palestinian Authority working with local elites, tribal leaders inside Gaza. And I think the one other condition will be that Israel wants to make sure that weapons are no longer smuggled from Egypt into Gaza, because that would allow Hamas to rearm. How actually that border will be patrolled remains to be seen.
All right. Now, Dr. Kupchan, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this. Always a pleasure to have you on the show with us.
Bye-bye.
For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.